Problem for small employers who don't have dedicated HR departments and who may not be paying fees to the companies who provide HR services. A problem for them is that they make silly mistakes in relation to employees that they don't really need to make, but they make the mistakes out of fear of law, fear of going legal, fear of solicitor's letters, fear of the WRC, the Workplace Relations Commission, and sometimes the fear is completely unjustified and they're actually in a strong position. But my biggest job when I'm advising them is to persuade them that they're actually in a strong position and they should just sit tight and do nothing. I have currently two situations there where I am acting for the employer, and I don't always act for the employer. I act for the employee a lot, but in this particular circumstance I'm acting for the employer, and in one of the situations the demands of the employee in the dispute are completely unreasonable. They're silly and they'll go nowhere, and I'm advising my employer to sit tight, don't give in to the demands. There's nothing to worry about. They have done things correctly, but every time the employee sends a letter or an email or a threat, I'm afraid that my employer, for an easy life, is going to fold and basically throw in the towel and give them what they're looking for, which, as I say, is completely unreasonable and unnecessary. I have another situation where it's a similar situation where the employee is making demands and the employer has basically made a very generous offer to sort out the problem and get the employee to leave the employment, and unfortunately it hasn't worked, and the mistakes they've made then in the correspondence with the employee, making an offer, for example, in open correspondence, not marking it without prejudice, subject to contract, subject to an agreement, etc. That could come back to haunt them later on. And again, in this particular case, the employer, if they played the situation correctly and fairly and legally and so on, they'd be in a strong position. They'd be in a strong position to resist what the employee is looking for. But because of the fear of WRC, fear of threats, they are running the risk of making a costly mistake. So that's the difficulty for small employers. I can give them the best advice in the world, but if A, they listen to me and only listen to me for a little while and then give in because of the relentless demands of the employee, or B, they just had enough and they fold the tent and give the employee what they're looking for, then they're going to be spending money that they don't need to spend and they should be spending or could be spending on their business. So that's a problem for small employers who don't have the benefit of good legal advice on tap, or a full-time HR department, full-time HR professionals and so on. That's my experience. And in both situations that I'm advising at the moment, I'm simply advising the employer to sit tight, that time is on their side and they're in a strong position. They've done nothing wrong, and if they do have to meet any claims down the line, then they're in a very strong position to deal with them. I'm down here at the canal in Enfield. It's lunchtime. This is called, what's this called now? I think it's called the Harbour in Enfield. There's the ring road there up above, and around here then we have some barges. So that's the story in Enfield on 19th of July 2024, I think. Hope you find the video useful, and more importantly, if you're a small employer, I'd recommend that you pay heed to what I'm saying, because the advice is free and it's not bad.